Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your evening to learn something new. Thank you for those who have invited guests. We're going to have a quick 30-minute education session from an incredible woman. Her name is Alison Horn. She's an integrative naturopathic healer, somatic practitioner, homeopath, herbalist, a keynote speaker, and author. She's also an independent Zinzino partner. So we're going to step through the product education and then open up for questions at the end. So over to you, Alison. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Margie, for your patience with me starting tonight, everyone, and welcome to this journey. I'm sure you're all here because we are all really interested in our health. And we know that health is wealth and we all want to live
Can you put
longer
the aircon
lives.
back on?
Just get someone to just mute everyone for me,
I've got
please.
25.
Thank you. Oh, I can pop that on, everyone. Thanks. And we know that the increase of information, thanks to social media, we have a lot of information about our health, but it also gets extremely confusing out there. And what's really scary is even though we've got all this information, we seem to be having increased numbers of chronic disease, which is really basically an increase in inflammation. Okay, so while we have an increase of inflammation, we also have this increase of inflammation. So why? Why is this global condition happening in the world? And we know that this is just increasing. As you can see, the statistics right there, this is taken from America, which we know is still modeled around the world. The increase in number projected to increase year after year with these chronic conditions. So what I'd love to educate you on tonight is our beautiful Chief Scientific Advisory Board and some of the research that they, along with Vitas Analytical Laboratory, who we work with as an independent laboratory partner. As you can see, both sides have a lot of scientific knowledge, wisdoms, and they bring that research to the forefront so that we can utilize all of this information into not only discovering why this is happening in the world, but also what are we going to do about it? How are we going to step forward as just either health professionals or people who are interested in your own health, but also the health of others in your life? How do we help solve this problem? So what is the problem? I want you to remember this number. This is the number that the doctors are not telling you about. 3 to 1. That's all I want you to remember. 3 to 1 is your safe zone. So what does this 3 to 1 mean? So let's talk about omega-3s to start with. Omega-3s are what we usually know as essential fatty acids that we consume from fish. It's pretty well known that everybody in the world knows that omega-3s from fish are really good for you and they're beneficial for your health and wellness. What you may not really understand is this is an essential amino acid, which means we can't produce them in our body alone. We actually must consume them. That's why they're called essential. And they are actually an anti-inflammatory, so they help to reduce inflammation in the body. So really pivotal for our health and well-being ever since the day our DNA was formed. Omega-6s, on the other hand, are still an essential fatty acid, which means we have to consume them. They're essential. We don't make them within our body, but they're actually inflammatory in nature. Now, we do need inflammation in our body. If you're saying to me, well, what's inflammation anyway? Inflammation is when the body is literally calling out for help. There's been an injury, something's happened where we have to call the army on in for healing. So it may be an infection, it may be an injury, and the body says, hey guys, need a bit of help over here, pay attention. What actually happens is the body is pretty unique in that it has its own biofeedback loops, really. So we turn things on and then we turn them off again. The body's pretty smart. It's called innate healing. So when these are working in balance, we get pretty good healing. Remember that number I just said before? 3 to 1. Here's the trick. You might have heard recently that there's been a bit of a flip in the food pyramid. No longer are we looking at the grains on the bottom being the majority of what we're supposed to eat. We're now going to the one on the left, which is saying less whole grains. Okay, in the past, we were told to consume more and more, and the saturated fats were really meant to be a small part of our diet. And what they've done over the last 60 years is they've encouraged us to eat less saturated fats, more ultra processed fats and seed oils, and these have been found in ultra processed foods. Okay, that has been increasing decade after decade. Not only that, we also know in the past 50 to 60 years, we have been consuming food that has been altered by chemicals. We don't have enough nutrients in our soil anymore. Once upon a time, we used to get everything that we needed, the phytonutrients from the soil and the natural ingredients that we were eating. But around 1960, that started to change. And as you can see that our ratios, when we were born, it's meant to be 1-to-1, they have steadily increased. And at the point of 4-to-1 back in the 1960s, that is when we started to see an increase of this chronic disease, an increase of this change in our omega-3-to-1 ratio. The omega-6s and the omega-3s started to get out of balance. And that's been increasing decade upon decade upon decade. So this is something that is really relevant in today's society. So now we're seeing tests come above 12-to-1, 25-to-1, 50-something to 1. Pretty scary when the World Health Organization says it needs to be under 3-to-1. To be optimally healthy, you should be 1-to-1. But the doctors aren't talking about this number. So what does it mean? Who cares, right? What does it do to us? So you can see in front of you the structure of a cell membrane. I get a little bit geeky here. I love talking about the cell membrane. It's like our bobble. When you blow bubbles up, if you don't have the ratio of detergent to water just spot on, those bubbles don't stay floating around. Our cells are the same. They need a beautiful nutrient balance. Okay, and that balance happens to be between, guess what? The omega-6s and the omega-3s. And when you throw that balance, you don't get a fluid cell membrane. It becomes rigid, just like on the diagram. The fluid cell membrane has nice flexibility. And what happens with that flexibility? The flexibility of your cell membrane actually allows nutrients into the cell and toxic waste back out again. Okay, so we need the flow of the good in and the bad out. It's how we cycle through what we're exposed to, not only nutrients, but our environmental chemicals. Once that function gets reduced in the cell, guess what? It throws out your insulin resistance because you can't get energy to the mitochondria. You can't release the wastes out of the cell, which leads to a damaged cell. That cell eventually explodes. That cell eventually just dissolves. It's no good. So we're losing our function. I want you to really think of the body as trillions of those cells. And I want you to really picture this doesn't just happen in one body system. We're not just talking about disease of the liver. We're not just talking about cardiovascular disease. We are talking about every single organ in the body, from our brain to our skin, to our joints, to our cardiovascular, to our reproductive organs. Every single cell is affected. Pretty scary. That's why we have this picture of a body, what I call on fire. This is inflammaging. All of those symptoms that everyone says they're normal for aging, bit of brain fog, your joints are creaky when you wake up out of bed in the morning, your skin's all dry, you've got wrinkles. Oh my goodness. The blood pressure goes up, your insulin resistance, you put on that tummy. It's all part of inflammaging. And they're not telling you how easy it is to reverse this. And we can change this. When you start to get that nutrient balance back in that cell membrane again, you start to get fluidity in the cell membrane. Guess what? The body, it's so smart. The body has its own innate intelligence. If it can get those nutrients back into the cell, We start to turn on metabolic function, and it automatically starts to repair throughout the whole body. How cool is that? So the problem is the majority of the population are walking around blind. They don't know about this number. They think that they're fine because these numbers are hidden. They're silent inflammation for at least 10 years before they cause what we call dis-ease. Enough of a dis-ease to get a diagnosis. And then the diagnosis comes with medications to handle symptoms. But what if your symptoms are just a sign of inflammation and that your body can't get nutrients into the cell? Wouldn't you love to reverse that? And what I'm really passionate about is talking about these numbers, because we know people who have had their tests done are coming in on a high ratio. And I want you to look at this graph. This graph shows us that the younger you are, the higher the ratio that is, which is really scary. It's showing the snowballing effect on each generation. It's getting worse and worse. If you actually take any omegas at all, which a lot of the population do, standard omegas can help, but not enough. They just can't cut it anymore because of how severe things have become. So what I want you to realize is that this change is beneficial, but we can make it a huger change by what we do with Zenzino and our balance oil, because that is the secret to actually combining polyphenols with our omega to really get to that cell membrane. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'd love for you to just have a quick listen to some important
Your kids' health is personal, not a guessing game. Children's omega-3 needs are different than adults. Not all bodies are created equal, so why should we all take the same supplements? Ours were made for your whole family. Find out everyone's individual omega-3 needs with our at-home balance test. Our brand new Balance Oil Tutti Frutti has a fresh flavor of raspberry, mint, lemon, pear, and lavender, tailored for both grown-ups and kids, with no fishy taste. Backed by science, approved by kids. From the pioneers of test-based personalized nutrition. Zenzino, inspire change in life.
So we're pretty passionate about children here, and I am especially, because I love to delve into epigenetics. That's how your nutrition when you are pregnant or breastfeeding, how that affects the future 2 generations, okay? And a lot of people really aren't aware of this ongoing snowball effect. And our population back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s were already starting to have a decline in the amount of omegas we were exposed to. So as parents, we've passed that on through each generation. That's the effect of epigenetics. And I want to see that reversed by raising education and awareness around this important factor. So what we're looking at now is the studies to show that the higher the omega-3 ratio is, our omega-3 index, it actually reduces the risk of chronic disease. So with chronic disease, we have a reduction in cardiovascular disease, colorectal, breast cancer, all the inflammatory diseases related to arthritis and autoimmune disease. So wouldn't you love to know that you can reduce that risk factor just by knowing this number? So we also know most people are aware of, if you smoke, that it increases your predictor of an early death. Research has shown that this is the same as a low omega-3 index as well. So it also decreases your lifespan. So what we know with Zenzino is this very special, unique formulation where we've taken polyphenols and put that together from the olives, put that together with the omega-3s from our omega-3s. So this is what protects. And this is the problem with today in society. We have such a high level of oxidative stress that we need to know how to protect the omega-3s to actually get to the cell. And this is why the standard omegas are not cutting it. We've done oil stability indexes, which is independently done by fisheries, and they can tell that the krill oil only lasts up to 3 hours in the body before it is oxidized. And a lot of people rely on krill oil to get their omega-3s. Once upon a time, it did the job. It can't anymore. The omega-3s that we place with vitamin E as an antioxidant only work up to 10 hours in the body. Once again, it's not enough to meet the high levels of oxidative stress. Cod liver oil, the good old-fashioned cod liver oil. Who remembers the tablespoons of that? Once again, even with vitamin E added to that, it lasts for 15 hours in the body. Still not enough for the average person's oxidative stress. But luckily, the combination that Zenzino have developed lasts for 35 hours in the body. 35 hours. So that's the ability to help chaperone the omegas to the cell membrane without them getting oxidized. This is the key difference, because if your omegas get oxidized in your body, it's actually adding to the problem and not solving it. And that is why not all oils are oils when it comes to the protective ability now in the fish oils. But I also want to talk about the gut really quickly tonight, because we know inflammation is not just at the cellular level. Most people understand now that the gut is connected to your healing and your health. Did you know that your mode of birth, whether you're Caesar or a vaginal delivery, actually will change the microbiome that you are born with? And this can also have an anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory effect on the type of microbiome that you have. Gram-positive versus gram-negative bacteria in your gut will trigger inflammation. Leaky gut, we call it. Okay, so a lot of things do come into play. We understand stress, our diet, processed foods. Once again, the ultra-processed foods they've been feeding us for the last 50 to 60 years have been wiping out antibiotics, chemicals, glycophosphates. These all wipe out our good microbiome that is needed to control inflammation. But you know what's pretty cool? This, the very first gut test that's not done by poo stools, chasing around what microbiome are in there, but how is our gut microbiome functioning? So we're talking about some of these great little metabolic markers that we now measure in your drops of blood, the same as your blood test with your a balance test, I should say. We're measuring indole-3 propionic acid, we're measuring tryptophan, and we're measuring kynurenine. What are these? Well, they're just markers that tell us whether your gut's happy or sad, basically. That's what it's all about. Because these ratios, once again, it's not all about specific just numbers. It's about ratios in the body. All of the biochemistry in the body relies on very particular biochemical pathways that are driven by ratios. So these ratios tell us how well your microbiome turns your food into protection, how your immune stress takes the energy away from your gut, and also how we protect the gut and reduce stress. So this is measuring a lot of biomarkers. And what we know when we see these ratios, we know how to once again help reduce inflammation in the gut. And how do we do that, you ask? Well, we feed the gut with prebiotic fiber. This is what we get from most of the food that we've been lacking, eating lots of different fibers. Traditionally, we're meant to eat over 30 up to 34 different types of fibers per week. The average everyday American Western diet might be lucky if they get between 8 and 12. So this is where we are having major issues with our microbiome as well. People are feeding themselves probiotics, but that's not going to cope if you don't feed them the right food. That's what prebiotics do. We need to feed the microbiome all through the whole intestinal area. All the way through, we have different microbiome needing different fiber sources. So this is designed with a mathematical equation, basically, to feed the whole microbiome. How cool is that? So as you can see, it comes from many different sources. And I just want to tell you that, yes, this is gluten-free beta-glucans from oats. And how do we know that? Because of the rigorous testing that all of our products go through Everything is tested so well that the health claims are approved by the European Food Safety Administration. Not many companies get to have these amount of approvals to say that the combination of these health protocol will help normalize blood pressure, will help normalize blood triglyceride levels, will help the fetus in development. So many ticks. And we know that when you take this, the ticks that are there from all different highest quality and care, my favorite is the informed sports. If you are an elite athlete, if you are an Olympian, if you are someone who is very specific about quality in your products, that you know you're getting what you're told, that you are being sold, these ticks, especially informed sports, they do not mess around with guessing if a product will work or not. That's what I love about the Zenzino guarantees in their products and the research that goes behind them for following these ticks. So our products, what are they? We have the balance test, which not only measures your 3:6 ratio, remember that 3:1 number we spoke about earlier? We get to find what that is for you out of just 2 drops of blood that's sent away to VITAS, totally independent. Now, we also measure 11 other essential fatty acids. It's the largest essential fatty acid database in the world that has been able to produce research, peer-reviewed, published research from over 580,000 of these tests from a $1.6 million tested database. How cool is that? And we also have the test for the HbA1c. So once again, we're also looking at what else causes the majority of health issues. Well, we know insulin resistance is right up there. So you can look at your 3-month insulin resistance and your metabolic function for your blood sugar control, so that we also know the prebiotic fibers actually help that as well as the omegas do. Okay, how cool? Yes. So you can monitor these. These are designed for you to do at home. You don't have to come and see a health professional like me. You can actually do this at home for yourself, anywhere in the world. So the next beautiful test, just as we spoke about, is a gut health test. Once again, drops of blood. These are all sent to independent labs, analyzed, and you get the full report for yourself to know what it is you need to change in your diet, in your health protocol to get to the achievable results. And do you know what's really cool? Is that we retest you after 4 months of doing the health protocol and we can see the changes. That's what I like. We test, we don't guess, and we prove that the products, the protocol are doing exactly what we want them to do. And that is tested from this independent lab called VITAS Analytical Laboratory. So our products are actually the balance oil itself. We also have a vegan balance oil. We also have an Aqua X, which was uniquely designed here in Australia. It is the only water-soluble omega, specially designed for those with liver issues. Maybe you've had your gallbladder removed. You've got a lot of people have fatty liver or issues with digesting fats. So we sometimes start with the Aqua X. We also have a premium oil. Now, this one's very specific. If you really do have high levels of oxidative stress in your body, the premium oil can sometimes be beneficial at the beginning because it has 30, let me say that again, 30 times the amount of polyphenols to help that oxidative stress, to get those omegas into the cell. So sometimes we start with this big gun. And if you're a bit of a sook and you only want to take capsules, well, we have capsules as well, and they are designed around the premium oil. We also have the Xenobiotic, like I mentioned earlier, for the gut inflammation. We know through the testing that within 14 days of taking the full Xenobiotic, we can reduce gut stress, reducing leaky gut, protecting, helping the immune system. And did you know how much that gut is connected to the brain for your health, your happiness, your joy, your dopamine hits? All comes from the gut. Your serotonin is converted from that gut microbiome. So it's really important to get that happy bacteria. We also have a beautiful skin serum. Thank you. Yes, it is beautiful. And we not only treat on the inside, but we have a beautiful, it's as good as food. And I love to tell people to have a look for the Yuka app, YUKA. And if you scan our skin serum, it's the only one on there I have found anyway, that is 100 out of 100 safe. Check all your expensive cosmetics in your cupboards, and I'd love to see your reaction of what you think after you've scanned them. Now, we also have something else coming on the market. It is called Collagen X, launching in Australia very soon. So we're pretty excited because we do know collagen is the most abundant protein in the body. And obviously, most people just look at aging with that collagen. But it's more specific than that. It helps bone and connective tissue and the skin. That's the type 1 collagen. But we also have the type 3, which is supporting our skin, our blood vessels, our organs, and also that connective tissue in the gut and the cardiovascular system. So how cool is that when you start layering inflammation and repair at the cell membrane, at the gut level, and now the connective tissue level? Whoa, we start to have massive healing on all layers and levels of the body. Now, a beautiful Collagen Boost X also has more in it than just collagen. This is a beautifully formulated combination of clinically proven ingredients to support the skin, joint, and the gut, all from marine grade 1 and 3. Now, as you can see, that's why it is classed as MSC collagen. We also have hyaluronic acid, pre and post probiotics, magnesium, L-arginine, biotin, glycine. We also have rice bran, ceramides, copper and zinc together. And once again, it's so important when you look at things like this, the ratios, the therapeutic levels to help hydration, to help bring this into the cell and to actually activate, help support your body to activate to produce its own collagen is the specialty of this formula. Nothing else like it. So we do have a beautiful skin test once this is released. We will be sharing this with health professionals in the skin and beauty profession so that we can help share this with not only for the beauty aesthetic external beauty, but also what it does on the internal as well. Even athletes as well are helping recover faster if they have injuries. So we're also looking at that. So it's a beautiful product for overall for everyone, but we'll be taking a photo and doing a 14-day, is it 10-day or 14-day retake of these photos and checking things later. So I would love you to really see the picture that the benefits from our Zenzino health protocols that are available here in Australia, there's a lot more available elsewhere in the world, but in Australia, our TGA, we've got a TGA approvals for what we do use here. That's why a lot of practitioners are loving this product. This is a consumer product, direct to consumer, direct to professionals to be able to have in clinics, and this is safe and effective from gestation, so when you're pregnant, all the way through to geriatrics and even to the grave. So there is no stage of life where you could sit there in front of me now and tell me that you do not have anything that could benefit from getting your cells back into function again, because that's what our primary is metabolic function in our cell membranes, helps everything else just function optimally. Then you can repair a lot of damage. Some people are jumping to the gun and they're trying to repair the mitochondria. They're trying to do all of these fascinating biohacking things, but they're forgetting the very first step, which is the cell membrane. And that is why the power of Zenzino is in the test. We have had so many health professionals that have been pescatarians for 20 years, taking high practitioner grade omegas, and yet their tests show that they were still not optimal. Eventually, we found out that there can sometimes be genetic conditions behind this, but when you get the test, you actually know then, and you're not guessing, thinking that you're doing everything right, thinking that your vegan diet is actually meeting all of your requirements. We see that time and time again, the conversions aren't happening. So it's a bigger picture to be able to sit in and research and test it. Don't guess it. And then follow that up. Stay on top of being healthy so that you can reduce your risks of chronic disease, inflammatory disease, inflammaging, so you can be like me and dance your way through to the end of your days. That's why our mission is to be the biggest preventative, let me say that again, preventative healthcare company in the world from personalized nutrition and testing, not guessing.